Hi, I am a lawyer in Australia, practicing in family and immigration law. Today I want to talk about the issue that is bothering a lot of Sri Lankans here. They are asking me whether a divorce that they obtained here in Australia will it be recognized in Sri Lanka. For years, this question has worried so many Sri Lankans living in Australia. People have gone through the emotional and financial stress of a divorce here in Australia. But they wonder, will I need to start the process all over again in Sri Lanka? There is good news for you. Under Sri Lankan Reciprocal Enforcement of Judgments, Amendment Act number 49 of 2024, Australian divorces are recognized back in Sri Lanka. This means you don't have to go through the divorce process again in Sri Lanka. Australian court order like divorce, custody or property settlement will be recognized if you register the divorce, custody, property settlement in Sri Lankan courts. Before I explain how the Sri Lankan court system works, let me explain how Australian courts get the jurisdiction to grant a divorce a couple that has been married in Sri Lanka. A lot of people don't realize this fact. Under Section 39(3) of the Family Law Act 1975, the Federal Circuit and Family Court of Australia has the jurisdiction to grant a divorce if at least one spouse first is an Australian citizen by birth, descent or grant of citizenship. Second is ordinary resident in Australia and has lived here for at least 12 months before applying. Or third, considers Australia their home and intends to live here indefinitely. So even if you have got married overseas, if you meet one of the requirements I stated above, you can get a divorce here in Australia. Once granted the divorce, the court in Australia will issue a decree which will be absolute after 1 month of the date of the divorce. But the big question comes now, will the Sri Lankan courts recognize the divorce that has been granted in Australia? That's where the Reciprocal Enforcement of Judgments, Amendment Act 49 of 2024 comes to play. This allows Australian judgments, including divorces, to be registered in Sri Lankan courts. Of course, we have to apply to courts and go through the process, but it will not be the normal divorce proceedings. Once registered in Sri Lanka, this will have the same effect as a divorce that has been granted by a Sri Lankan court. But it is important to remember that a divorce granted in Australia is not automatically recognized in Sri Lanka. There are procedural requirements and there can be objections taken by the other party. That is why you need help. And that is what we are here for. If this sounds like something you need or someone you know, feel free to reach out.